What's up, everybody? Today we're going to do a bit of work in ASEPRITE. So I have a collection that I've been working on for a little bit of time now. I call them ZEPs, and I'll kind of explain where that comes from. Actually, I'll do it right now. So I have this collection of 3D rendered designs that I've done for some time, and I've slowly been working on. They're called Zephyrs. So the concept for Zephyrs originally was I would create these 3D rendered eggs, and these 3D rendered eggs would exist or be placed essentially by this entity called the mother across different areas of space-time. So that originally in the first 5 when I was kind of experimenting, and I can actually show what some of those looked like. But in the first 5 when I was experimenting, a lot of the Zephyrs that I did were primarily, obviously not really of the Earth. Many of them were more, and a lot of these are audiovisual based as well, but many of them were more extraterrestrial, like the number 1 up here. The very first one that I ever made was very experimental, extraterrestrial. It's pretty cool because they were all soundscapes as well. We have some audio to go along with them. You might not be able to hear that. Let me switch to internal. But yeah, so a lot of them were audio-scaped, just for kind of the experience, and this was the very first one I ever did. This was done in C4D. I ended up switching over to Blender as I continued, just because I found that C4D was pretty difficult to work with, on top of the fact that it cost money, on top of the fact that all of the plugins that you needed in order to be effective also kind of cost money. So anyway, Blender was just a more accessible option for doing some of these. So the first one was pretty extraterrestrial. After that, we had what I considered the elementals. So 2, 3, 4, and then 5. 5 being the last elemental Zephyr that I had done. I've been selling these on Solana, which is a cryptocurrency, though I'm not bound to that. It's just a kind of an outlet for me to be able to sell some of the art that I create in a royalty-free, or I guess a royalty-gathering fashion, which is nice to be able to kind of collect some funds for the art that you put together. So anyway, this was the last one, or no, this was not the last one that I did. This was the most recent one that I created a Zep for. And essentially the Zeps are just, I would say, like larval state creatures that kind of come from these Zephyrs. So the concept is just, I'm trying to kind of provide my holders, like the people who have bought my art in the past, some additional work from me, and I can kind of show what some of those Zephyrs looked like as well. The original concept that I had for, or Zeps, sorry, but the original concept that I had for Zeps was like really ugly. I envisioned this worm creature here, and then, came to realize that this is not very visually digestible. I hate this, is another way to put it. It went through a couple iterations of, kind of like this very multi-layered alien creature, and then we kind of slowly cut down on the fact that it was an alien. Well, actually, it went here first, so I did make the worm cuter. Gave him a net, just made him a little bit less terrifying. Ultimately, we kind of got to the final design structure of this. So this is the kind of like the final iteration that I ended up coming to for the creation of some of these Zeps. And we even went so far to create, some accessories for them. This is just him with a hat with Westwind Studio on it, which is kind of nice. We continue to make some of these. I'm trying to find where I layered them all together. I do have a PSD of it, but I don't know if I've saved the full file, though I thought that I had. Oh, perhaps it's in my downloads. It probably is. And I just want to show you to just kind of get you up to date on where all of our Zeps are currently sitting. So these are all of our Zeps so far. We have the first one, which is the more ethereal, out of this world Zep and Zephyr. The second one, they all have names as well. This is Elam. This is Anova. Anastasia is this cute blue one here. I made Zeptachi Uchiha. This was just something that I did for myself. It's not it's not counted in the collection. We have Kalen, which is a forest, kind of like a forest, happy little forest sprite spirit. This is something that I've created more so for myself, just to kind of have represented on some of my social profiles. I'm noticing an error down here as well, which I will need to go and fix. Akirio, it was the elemental with the volcano. And then the last one that I most recently released was this guy over here. His name's Kata. And he is actually pretty cute. He's based on a dinosaur piece that I put together. So this is Kata. So with that kind of preface put into perspective, what we're going to aim to do today is we're going to be turning, now I have all of these open. I'll close that really fast. We're going to be turning this into a Zep. We're going to be creating the Zep for this particular Zephyr. This Zephyr is called Meli, and it's, as you can probably tell, in the shape and essence of a beehive. So we got some honey in here, you know, kind of like a honeycomb pattern on the top part, and then more of a hive kind of look on the bottom. The way that I've done these in the past, so this is the base that I'm working off of. Let me close that as well. I always fail to close some of this stuff up before I actually get into it, but on the bottom here, or like here, this is essentially a base version of Kalen, which I had done. So the general outline and shape and different coloration areas are located here. And what we're going to do, I'm going to reset this to a default palette. I have pretty poor palette management, but I'm learning. I'm trying to figure it out, get a little bit better at it. But what we're going to do essentially is we're going to come in here and we're going to rip some of the colors off of this image. So the original Zephyr, and we're going to be applying those colors to the overall look of the new Zep. This is going to be an interesting piece because this is going to be bee focused. So I want to incorporate a couple things that are a little bit more along the lines of a honeybee. So we might get some stripes to come into this piece, as well as I want to maybe add some wings to it. It's going to be a little bit different than some of the other Zeps that I did, but I really want to try to drive home the fact that it is bee related, and see what we can do there. So we're just going to start grabbing some colors here. I typically kind of start just grabbing random colors. Just random colors from this area, then grabbing the hex and porting it over here. If you have any more efficient ways of doing this activity, let me know, but for now this is just kind of what I do. It doesn't really matter what colors that we grab, because ultimately once we come over here, as we begin to add the colors to the canvas and really just try to determine what the overall look is going to be that we're going for, we're going to tone up and tone down some of those colors just to get some better some better shades and some better cooperation between some of the colors that we're using. When I originally put together the Zephyr for Meli, it wasn't really done with a lot of color intention. I think I've been growing a lot in that space just to, this is probably a little too similar to the other color that we brought in for it to matter. Yeah, we'll bring it in anyway. Yeah, so I wasn't really working with a lot of color theory when I really started doing some of these. We'll grab this nice yellow here. It's a good yellow for B. Happens to just be an interesting reflection off of something else in the image. But it's definitely a nice lighter B color. Maybe we'll try to grab a black off of this B down here as well that's just stuck to the honeycomb. Yeah, like I was saying, I didn't have a lot of color theory when I originally started doing this. I think I've been slowly developing in an artistic capacity with that, and I think the pixel art's really been helping me a lot too, because it makes you think about shading and light and things like that when you're working in a 3D space, like I've been for some of these Zephyr eggs. You put the light in a three-dimensional space, so you don't really need to worry about where the light's coming from, where the shading's happening at. I mean, obviously there's definitely tweaks to make with the lighting in Blender to make sure that the lighting that you do have is hitting the object correctly, that it doesn't look stale, which I've also kind of progressed at, but it doesn't look stale, it doesn't look too flat or bland, and that it is playing off of the objects in the scene well. And some of that also comes down to how you are actually configuring the objects to receive that light too. But anyway, that's for a separate conversation. I'm I'm still working on some 3D stuff, and I have a lot of plans for future, you know, to kind of continue this collection of Zephyrs here. But ultimately, I do want to kind of focus on a little bit more pixel art and getting into what we're getting into with kind of applying that pixel art into very simple bite-sized type games. We're also going to be doing some painting and pixel art too, and I think a lot of that's going to be important for delivering some sort of a study with colors and lighting and pixel art in general. So that's kind of the path that we're on at the moment, but we're still going to, you know, continue to explore in the multifacets that we have, because that's just what we do. Alrighty, so I think that's enough colors to kind of start with. I want to kind of get rid of the rest of the colors that we had in here and just kind of keep our base set. There's a guy that I follow from kind of on Twitter, and he does a lot of pixel art work, and his name's Marcolino. I don't know if anybody who is from like the Solana world watching this, they'll know who that is. If you're not really in that space, it doesn't really matter. Well, it doesn't matter at all to me, but the explanation for him is essentially he shared a little bit, like a screenshot of his ASEPRITE, which he has over 26 or 2,700 hours dedicated in. But his color management in the palette just looks really nice. So I'm going to try to live up a little bit more to his more professional standards, and trying to kind of keep a cleaner palette with the colors that we're using, whether it's contrasting up or contrasting down, changing hues, changing brightness, whatever, and go from there. So as you can see from the original image here, there are a few things that we need. We need a dark base color that's not entirely black, but kind of riding down from the color that we're going to use on the rest of the creature here. So this white coloration I typically kind of keep, but I can usually find some sort of a gray or a white from the actual image to place over this white here, to just kind of act as that ultimate light source, like that reflection piece on these Zeps. And then from there we kind of look at, you know, what color do we need to use overall to deliver the kind of coloration that we want, and what would it look like in the light. So this is probably going to be a very yellow, like golden honey kind of creature, and we're going to tone that down probably from a lighter yellow into more of a mustard, and then maybe into, you know, some oranges, and maybe like a deeper, I don't know, we might just keep it yellow because I do want to maintain the bee aspect here as well. So we'll see how it goes. I think we're just going to kind of start throwing some colors in here and experimenting and see where it takes us. So hitting G, I feel like whenever I watch, this isn't a tutorial video, this is just me kind of streaming what I'm doing to share along with anybody who may watch it in the future, or may, you know, come along and check it out. But and I see there's a viewer right now in the chat. Thanks for watching. If you're somebody that I know, appreciate you anyway. But when I'm watching tutorials, I see, you know, a lot of people are hitting hotkeys and things like that, and as I'm trying to keep up as a beginner, it's, you know, it's really difficult to do that. So I'm going to try to call out, even though this isn't a tutorial video, what I'm pressing on the keyboard, just to kind of accomplish what I'm accomplishing. So if anybody is watching or watches in the future with the intention of wanting to kind of do some of this in ASEPRITE, that they're able to maybe keep up. So just press G, the letter G there on the keyboard. And what that does, that's kind of like the fill capability. So I'm going to get rid of this white here and just replace it with this more gray color. I might actually tone that up just a little bit because it is a little bit dark for my taste. But we're going to keep it in this warm yellow-orange spectrum. It doesn't matter too much, but it does make a slight difference. So we're going to tone it up to right about there and place it in there. Again, not a huge difference, but just kind of nice to have. And then with this nice gold color, I think this is good to kind of have as a more, as a strong base for generally what this like the majority color is going to be that attracts the eye here. And then we're going to base the other colors that we have off of this one. So pressing G does fill, like I said. This button up here, contiguous, this determines whether or not it's going to fill a specific area or replace all of the colors across the entire kind of pixel work with that particular color. So I have it unchecked here. So when I clicked on this headpiece, it also updated this color down here. If I were to check it, then if I were to fill in just one area, it's only going to fill in that one area. So I keep it unchecked for now just because I am altering the colors over the entire piece to whatever new colors I want. This is actually a little bit too orange for my taste. I do have my flux off. I don't know if anybody uses flux, but it is very difficult to do color works or any kind of art when it's on. We're actually just going to bring this over a little bit to maybe a brighter shade of yellow. Yeah, that's perfect. And then we're going to take this, trying to work on that palette management, and bring it up here next to this one. I think this is a great toned down color, perhaps to kind of take the place of, yeah, this color here. And then we're going to go down a couple more shades to just achieve these additional layers of depth that we need. I could, or what some people might do is, well, I don't know if they'd actually do it, but this is a brighter yellow. It's yellow. We're looking for yellow, but the thing is we want the yellow to play off of this color, like these shades that we've created from each other. Otherwise, it looks a little bit more out of place. So I couldn't tell you what the color theory is behind this, but I think it's actually analogous or something like that. Not entirely sure, because I am changing a couple different settings for this. But you want to use the base colors essentially when you're creating new colors or new shading, to make sure that you are staying cohesive throughout the entire piece. So with I pressed I to bring up this finder here. We're going to select the color that we just used for the majority of the work here. And then down here on the color shader, we're going to do a couple things. The first thing we're going to do is just try to lighten it up. So we're going to take on this main slider here and just kind of bring it to the left and up a little bit to a brighter kind of color. And then you also want to adjust just for a little bit more cohesion down here on this hue panel. And we're just going to bring that very slightly over to the right. Yeah, maybe just leave it like that and see how that comes out. So what that does essentially is when you, it's one thing, I just learned this from, watching some color tutorials, and some different folks had mentioned doing this. So when you adjust the brightness of the color here, it makes sense to adjust the hue a little bit too, because it gives the colors that you're using a little bit more of a cohesive uniqueness to them, or I guess like a uniqueness to them that still allows them to be cohesive with one another. So in applying it here, I'm gonna press G again and we'll apply it to the rest of those. You can already tell that it's just a more effective yellow sheen against the kind of like yellowish orange here, like the honeybee color. So we're just going to continue going this way. These feet here are not going to change colors while we're doing this, simply because they are in a different section. So we'll worry about that layer later. I might actually just close out. Oh yeah, just close out the feet there, just so we can bring those back in the future and then update the colors on them. So yeah, we'll leave them for now because it's hideous without them. All right, so we'll take this color here, and then we're going to go a little bit darker here, and probably bring it over towards the yellow. I do want to maintain more of a yellow and less of an orange hue. Ultimately, since this was derived from this color, and then we derived this from this color, then I think it makes sense to kind of go with this color. This darker color here to kind of achieve the darker areas that we need to get to. So I'm just going to take it a little bit darker here. I don't want to get it super dark. I'm going to bring the hue just slightly more towards yellow, because as we lose the darkness, I still want to maintain a little bit of that, or as we lose like the brightness, I do want to maintain some of the coloration in the yellow sphere. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And then we have 2 more to go. So same process. And as you can see, when I change the color down at the bottom, press this little exclamation point that comes up in order to add it up here. And then again, just trying to practice good palette management. We're just going to put it up there next to the other couple in the process that we're doing it on. So this orange, red, and darker maroon colors here, like the red or orange, crimson, and like this maroon, we may not use those, but I like to still pull them in from this just to make sure that whatever colors are being used in this scene, we're excluding the greens obviously, just because they don't really have much to do with our core character. Though it might actually be a good idea. With that said, we are going to grab a green, perhaps a brighter green where possible, and I think this is a great pastel, like basic pastel color. We're just going to grab this anyway, just because we do need a background color. So the background colors that I have are, they kind of span, oops, I need to bring the shading in the body above these backgrounds, or I guess bring the backgrounds down. I brought them up earlier when I was trying to do some organization, but obviously that doesn't make sense. So these are mostly like, or these are some of the backgrounds that I've done for other Zeps. I try to keep them kind of pastel based. That was more of a guideline thing, but they just provide enough of a contrast without being too distracting. This was for Kalen originally. I think with the vibrancy that I used on that particular piece, it made sense. But using a bright color like this doesn't work for all of the, all of the Zeps that I'm kind of putting together. But I am going to add that color that we just pulled from the grass here, hit the exclamation point, and this may be a color that we kind of play around with as far as determining what the background's going to be. Okay, so where were we? We went down to this color here. We need to go one level darker to achieve this deep green here and replace that. And I might maintain the same black color that's already on here, and then we'll just see about, you know, somehow applying some shaded, and it's going to be a challenge. I don't know if I've actually gone that route, but some shaded stripes maybe across the torso and the tail here to really signify that this is a bee, or like bee-like. And then, you know, we'll kind of play around with what some wings might look like. Probably just end up having the one wing back here. I'll probably make it big enough to where you can see it, and maybe, you know, maybe we'd be able to overlap a second one on it. But we gotta think about perspective when we're doing that as well. Okay, so pressing I again, selecting this color. We're gonna go a little bit darker. This is more towards a brown. I'm gonna continue bringing it more towards this yellow sphere, so it's still maintaining that bee-like yellow while at the same time getting darker. And then we'll click on shading. You got to make sure you have the right layer selected here. We'll just select this. Doesn't look quite right, so we might want to take it just a little bit darker, maybe a little more towards the yellow. Might actually need to go towards the orange again. And that's not so bad. Still not quite right. I'm going to bring it over to orange and just see if we're able to... Okay, I think that actually makes a little bit more sense. So what I think there's a give and take with what I'm doing there when you are decreasing the brightness of a particular color and then dragging the hue towards like a what one might consider a lighter hue. Is you may lose some of that consistency between the colors that you have in your piece. So I think this is fine. We'll go with this for now and see how it kind of turns out. Next, we'll just update really quickly the feet. Again, I am not a master of organization. To be honest with you, I'm a little bit impatient when it comes to doing some things. Very impatient. So typically I organized this before starting the video. Otherwise it was just a long list which looked hideous, but I figure, you know, put on a front. Everybody else can see that I have a little bit of organization going on. I mean, it's better that I do this and do organize it because it is something that frustrates me. It's just not something I really get around to. And I don't really need to be doing one layer per either, but what I want to avoid losing is kind of like the original combination of colors for each of the different steps that I create, because then I have to go back and redo the colors or like find other files, etc. So I am attempting to maintain to some extent a running list of features for each of the ZEPs that I'm putting on. So the name of this ZEP is Meli, which is I think Greek for honey, which is why I provided that name. We're going to get rid of the Ikirio feet, and then we're going to add our colors based off of what's here. So I believe we take this color, like the color of the chest here, and we'll apply that to the tops of the fists. And then this darker color arises from, I believe, this darker shade down here. So that's where we'll get those colors from. Okay, not so bad. If you look over at the preview on the right side, I mean, it doesn't really make a difference, but for some reason, the preview always looks nicer to me. This is kind of the base concept of the coloration and structure of what we're going to use. Like I said, I'm going to just maintain this black color here, and we'll see what we can do with that. The next step here is going to be taking that black color and determining how to use it as stripes across the belly and the tail. I imagine that I would probably want to find the same number of shades I'm using here across the chest. So if black was going to be, or maybe like a slightly lighter black was going to be used at the end here, then I would want to maybe have 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 shades, slightly lighter, maybe like a gray or something, that I'm able to kind of take across the body. Maybe 2 stripes here and then a couple stripes across the tail, and maybe just like a really thin like black stripe here in this midsection piece. We'll leave the head as it is because we don't want to distract from the facial features. We'll get into that in a little bit, but you saw some of the eyes and the mouth that we had worked on earlier, or that we had kind of shown on some of the other ZEPs. So we'll keep the face pretty clear. We are going to end up putting some bee antenna on this, which is going to be super cute. This is probably going to be my favorite one so far if everything comes out the way that I intend it to, but we'll see how it goes. All right, so we'll start with creating a bit of a color palette for the black. I don't know why I added all of these because I believe we already have all of them. Wait, that's IX3, IX2, 14. Okay, whatever, we'll keep it. Already losing track up there as far as management is concerned. So we do have this. This is the color here. We'll take this down to the end just because we want to have some clear thought on where we're going. So if we're using black, clicking on, closing this category here and clicking on the shading. If we're using black as kind of like in one of the edge placements for a stripe that may go across, you probably want that stripe to maybe be like too wide, and then just feed it across the chest here in a slight curvature. We're going to go to a more orangish hue just to start, and then we'll just take very, very slight increments here. Again, because it is black, it's not going to be absorbing very much light anyway, so whatever colors we use for this area doesn't matter all that much, just as long as there is a little bit of difference as it kind of approaches the light. Because I mean, even if it's not pitch black, then it's probably still something to worry about there. So, or still something to do there as far as shading is concerned. I'm not going to worry about changing the brightness and the hue on these because again, it's just a kind of a black color. So we'll just stick with this, and we'll just see where we can fill in some of the shading going across. I am actually going to, fill those back in from a shading perspective. Let me see if I can, I want to get rid of the colors that I've had, so we'll just slap this in here and change it as necessary later. I'm going to create a new layer on top of the shading layer. And that's going to be the lines. Just in case I mess up or want to go back or just completely erase them or something, it's best if I'm able to just remove the layer instead of having to go back and kind of color everything again. So we're just going to create a new layer there and see how we go with adding these in. So a couple pieces there. We have going from darker to lighter from left to right here. So we're just going to kind of fill in the blanks as far as the stripes may be concerned. I'm going to try to kind of stay consistent with what we have going on from a coloration perspective here. So if it's within this shade, then I'll color it in with this. This darker shade, I'll color it in with the darker shade, and then go slightly lighter as we work our way across with the rest of the lines here. Again, I want to be careful that we are kind of respecting a particular curvature on our ZEP here, just because I definitely want to avoid. We'll leave the white there, just because I think it's still be, if we consider the texture of this creature to still be kind of shiny, then it'd still be a little bit shiny. And then we'll just pick it up towards the edge, add a black stripe here perhaps, and I suppose there. And then we'll just need to draw our way back. Now that we have the colors generally selected, or like generally placed across some of these different areas, I'm just going to use, maybe we can, yeah, it should be fine. And we might actually color this in just for consistency. When you're doing pixel art, or really any art, I'm sure there's a lot of iteration that goes into it, so we will be modifying this as necessary as we kind of work through what our lines are going to look like. Like for instance, I don't like that this looks like that over here. Another reason to just provide, well, this line like overall is just very, very flat up top, so we'll probably curve it down a little bit more. But it's another good reason to provide or provide for additional layers, just to make sure that whatever you do or want to do with a particular piece, you're able to modify readily and not be stuck with something particular. There are some general rules that I've learned with pixel art that will probably evade me now that I'm trying to do this streaming. But we're going to just do our best and come back to it as necessary. This looks actually kind of good here. Thinking about the chest and where the center of the chest would probably come out and down. Like if you were doing this from a drawing perspective. That's where I would want the base of that curve to go to. But it doesn't have to be perfect. And I do want to make sure that it looks good above all else. All right, we're gonna try to add one more here. This might be a slightly larger line. We'll have to see. I'm gonna try to replicate as best as I can what was done up top as far as colors are concerned, and also depth of the line. So the one thing I want to avoid here is I probably don't want this particular pixel, because maybe not even here. We might actually just want to take all that there. I'm going to press M, which is the marquee tool, and grab everything that I've done from this layer and just drop it down one line. We'll need to take, oops, forgot that I did these over here as well. Well, we can grab those really fast too. Just drop them down one. I'm going to take that and just fill this in here on the side. And then see what we can draw across for this. Making my life more difficult now because I'm trying to understand or remember which colors we use for where. So we'll get rid of, oops, not that. We'll go to E, get rid of these. E is erase. That's the shortcut for erasing. Grab this. I think we could probably start straightening out here. This looks good. And then we'll just take this across to right about where the hand would be otherwise, which is kind of where we were before. We'll switch to this color, which is for the lighter shade, and drop it down. Yeah, that looks good here. And then we'll, oh, wait. This lighter shade was on strictly yellow. We would want this shade. Okay, we may have been using the wrong shade here. So we'll grab this shade for everything dark, just putting it in there to confirm. I have bad eyes, so we're just gonna do that. We'll grab this shade, and that will act as the this darker yellow area here. So if we want to kind of bring this across like so, we'll just go ahead and bring it out to that. The hands are gonna luckily kind of assist us with a bit of a visual barrier to help us effectively. This is starting to look like a Electabuzz Pokemon, but to kind of help us hide some of what we're doing. I say hide, but I mean more like we don't have to make perfect shapes if there are other factors like in front of them. So then we'll just grab this, which is the lighter shade, and then start cutting back up here. We did draw over the white up there. We'll see about the white that I have on this, because I do want to make sure that we're still kind of respecting a reflection if possible. Okay, so the one thing I'm noticing, well, let me fill this in really fast just for the hell of it, just to kind of close that off. One thing that I'm noticing here so far with what we've done is the curve for the second line is not as nice looking as this top one. I think what might happen here is I'm going to imagine that we're rotating this whole line around the body to the left, so that this bottom piece is, like I had mentioned before, a little bit more on where like this belly might actually be curving. So I'm just going to grab the marquee tool again, take it all the way across, and grab everything that we have and just shift it a couple to the left here. Yeah, we might actually want to. So I think this is good. This is fine. We'll get rid of the edge. Add this here. We'll need to kind of get rid of that. But we do want to have a bit of a pickup, so we'll replace this with this. At this point, we're getting a little bit out of touch with where our colors were, but we'll still have some of the shades in there, or like the desired shades in there, which is good. We'll want to add that there, add this here. Yeah, and then I think if we can effectuate a bit of a rise on this side, then that should kind of cover that. Maybe clear some of this out on the bottom so it's more of a left focused stripe. Might even want to take out a couple of the ones up top. Yeah, we'll leave those for now. Okay, you just use the scroll wheel to kind of come in and out like I'm doing here. I want to grab this, make that a hard line on this side, put that there. And then just for the sake of this, we're going to do some dithering to make it, since we're no longer really kind of respecting what we had up here as far as like, you know, filling in the shades. I'm just going to do some dithering across these different areas to make sure that we're still providing a little bit of shade and light, etc. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and dither the whole thing, see how it turns out. Dithering sometimes adds a bit of a texture that's not always attainable otherwise, just using a gradient or whatever. So that's good. And then we may want to tweak. I actually kind of like that, filling that in a little bit more, making that bottom piece wider and more on that belly area. I think that's pretty helpful. One of these dithers is not like the other. Oh, I might actually mess this whole thing up. We'll grab this, just clear that out, and then start with this. We'll actually take that top one out and just put this here, because the way that this is kind of working, and I'll actually remove this for consistency as well, the way that the light is coming down is from this top left portion. So the light's impacting here, and what we can kind of try to do with the dithering is make it so that it's almost like you're seeing a little bit more of a shade from this top left area. Alrighty. Thinking about up here now, I may want to add this, perhaps even that, and then fill. No, I don't want to go too overboard. Beauty is in simplicity, which is something that I've learned in trying to get a lot of this to work over time. I think that actually looks pretty good as far as stripes are concerned. I will probably come back to this at some point and just tidy up a little bit, you know, before I actually release it or deliver it to its owner. Just tidy up some of the coloration on some of these stripes. But overall, I mean, I think the stripes on the belly here are actually looking pretty good. Yeah, it's not too bad. All right, so we're gonna work on the tail now, which is gonna be the same concept. We're gonna start dark on the bottom and head more towards like a lighter concept up top. Yeah, and just see how that works out. I think for this, it's gonna be important to try to keep it thin enough to be visible, but not super overbearing. Okay, cool. So we can go here, probably. Yeah, okay. Just grab our lightest version here, cover some of this, and then we'll grab this again and take that there. Nice, little stripe on the tail. Pretty easy. We'll grab our dark color back here, do something similar. Might actually take it a little bit higher up. You got to think about how the tail is curving now and which direction this stripe is going to go in. So this kind of went up and over because this is the kind of like bottom or top of a curved tail. But for up here, just remember where I put that. We're gonna go down towards the bottom. So this is dark. We'll take this one because that's the color that pertains here. That doesn't look so good, which is kind of like that square block. So we might just do something like this, and then we'll take a lighter shade and adapt this top one to be a little bit brighter. And we'll grab these and close that out. Maybe just add 1, 2. Let me get rid of this one. Yeah, it's not so bad. Sometimes it is a little bit difficult to determine where, oh, that's, I think, better. Sometimes it's difficult to determine, especially when you're working with, a smaller canvas or one that doesn't have as much, like as many pixels to actually put in there. Like there's this guy, and again, if you're in the Solana space, you would know this person, but they recently did a collection called Critters Cult. I think his Twitter name is like RGB or something, but he does really cool paintings on high resolution, large scale pixel canvases. So when you're looking, and maybe I'll show one at the end of this, I have to see, but when he's doing some of his art, it doesn't matter as much, in my opinion, or at least, in the way that I've been thinking about it, where he kind of places an individual pixel, because a lot of it is very zoomed out. You're not really looking pixel by pixel where you can kind of identify an error if something is misplaced. You're looking more at the whole image and where kind of the colors are being used and more on like lights and shadows. It looks more like an actual photograph or painting or something like that, as opposed to this where you can see every distinct square. So if I kind of misplace something, like if I were to just add a pixel here, it completely changes really what that back stripe looks like. So it's really just kind of trying to figure out the best. Oh, I think that actually looks better. That looks better. It's just trying to figure out the best way to deliver some of the pixels. I don't even know if that looks better. Okay, yeah, I think it definitely does. Control Z and Control Y is backwards and forwards. If you're kind of interested in this. All right, and then the last thing that we're going to do as far as shading is concerned is start dark on the bottom, and then maybe just do kind of a stripe that goes here. Maybe 2 bars into 1. I don't want to go super hard on having a stripe in this midsection because I don't want to do too much with the striping. He is like a bee creature technically, but I don't want it to be overbearing, which might be a little bit difficult for us to accomplish here because we do need to have, it has to have some kind of girth. Weird word choice, but it's got to have some kind of shape to it. Maybe we'll keep it wide on the bottom. We'll go 3 and then 3, 2, 1, like just kind of have this shape here. The only thing I don't like about that is that it feeds over onto this actual outline shading of black, which doesn't look so hot. Maybe just remove those 3. See, this is also where like the single pixel placements kind of come into play because we don't have as much room to work with, so we have to be really careful about what we're placing and where. I do think that a stripe in this area makes sense. It's more so determining how, and maybe we'll go to like how we actually get it on here without looking hideous. I mean, that's not so bad. It's thinner than the rest of the stripes on the Zep, but don't know if there's much that we'll be able to do about that without, again, like if we do this, like what I just did, kind of filling this piece, like this whole area in, then we kind of start to lose a little bit of that like yellow effect, and your eyes are more drawn to the like the stripes in totality. It's give or take because I also kind of hate this, where this as a single line just looks the same as one of these outlines on the actual structure. So maybe we can find like a happy medium with something like that. And I'm not using the appropriate colors color scheme anymore. I'm more just kind of trying to see what it should look like. I think that's not too bad. Okay, well, we'll leave that for now. Maybe we'll adjust it later. Okay, so generally pulling this together, we have some B stripes, we have a little bit of shading. We will add maybe this color there, as it's kind of maybe shaded by the top of this tail. More light's kind of hitting here in this downward fashion. So we have shading on the stripes as it goes like left to right where the sun is. We'll add this color here. Well, it is underneath a hand. I don't know if that's quite necessary. And we'll add it there for a little bit of dimension, just for now. It's not going to be something that anybody really notices anyway. I mean, it might be. I'm going to grab this, so everything underneath here, and maybe shift it 1 to the left, perhaps 2 to the left. Yeah, we'll go 2 to the left. And this is because we want to try to align the curvature of this top line to the bottom line here for a little bit more consistency. Removing that's not going to work. We have to have that there, but I do think that this might be a little bit too much to have all of these here. It looks almost as significant as the one below, even though the below one is a little bit of a bigger stripe. So yeah, I think we kind of have to be over there. We'll do that for now. All right, a couple more things to add. We have eyes, mouth, antenna, and then some wings. I'm a little nervous to do the wings at the moment. So maybe we'll start with the eyes, mouth, and antenna. Working through the mouths, we have a couple different mouth options that we've done in the past. So this is Kalen's, very simple. This was Akirio's, kind of like a smirk. Each of these different Zeps and Zephyrs have a different characteristic that go along with them. So you have Akirio, who's a little bit, he's arrogant, he has this smirk. You have the Anastasia's kind of girl smirk. Just very simple, maybe a little bit uptight, or just, I mean, not so uptight, but prissy could be a good word for it. We have Inova's smirk, which is more of a kind of a sly, clever smirk. Then we just have like a general smile. I kind of like the way that this works for this B style. At least like the color scheme, like this red color scheme kind of plays well on the overall with what we have going on. I'm going to go ahead and add some eyes, just populate some eyes here as well. Those are gross. These are Akirio's eyes. A little too much for the B structure. Oh, that's freaking adorable. And maybe we can use these eyes. I try not to replicate too much. Man, all of these eyes look great. And we got some yellow tones on this one too. I think the other eyes look best. I try not to replicate too much from Zep to Zep because I do. Okay, you can ignore these eyes. I have been experimenting a little bit, and these obviously are not making the cut to any Zep or anything that I ever do. These are even worse. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that. We'll never talk about that again. These are like the I'm going to kill you alien eyes that I also kind of put together. Between that, the one that I just deleted, and these, like, I don't even know why I still kind of keep these. So you can see the eyes have improved over time, and hopefully we keep on improving. So I like these. They're simple. I like that he's looking kind of to the right over there. Ooh, just had a new idea. This is a B, so technically it should have a stinger as well. I don't know if the stinger is going to be super visible because the wings are probably going to be taking up a lot of this area here. But I wonder if we can maybe do the wings in such a fashion where part of it is transparent, like we don't actually have any color there. And then you'd be able to see some sort of a stinger coming through. No, we'll get there when we get there. I think for the eyes, we'll probably keep this style of eye, and I may come back in and modify this at some point. But I think we're going to do a bit of like these honey colors for the eyes. So we'll take this honey color, click on the eye that we currently have available, put it in the darker area, and then maybe like this lighter orange color and place it there. He looks kind of like a murderer now. So maybe we'll try this instead. Kind of hate that too. The blue is a nice contrast with the yellow, so maybe instead of doing what we're doing there, we'll just click like one of these yellows. If you want to do some color exploration across different hues, like completely different hues from what you're working on, you can essentially just click a color that you want. And I think this is analogous. If I mentioned analogous at the beginning of the stream, I think this is actually analogous. But so you click that color and you don't adjust any brightness, or yeah, you don't adjust any brightness or what is it called, like value for the color, but instead you literally just take this dial and just go across the spectrum. So if you're looking down at this area here, we'll be able to see across this whole spectrum all the different colors that are analogous to the yellow that we're using as the main part of this creature without like changing the brightness or whatever else. So it should go fairly well. And you know, once we kind of get over more towards this green part, you can see that this light blue is pretty close to something that's fairly analogous with this yellow, which is probably why it works so well and why this honey that we picked off of a completely different part of the Zephyr image doesn't work so well. So I do really like the blue, but obviously I don't want to keep the same exact eyes that we had for another one of our creatures. I think this is actually Kotlen's eyes. So maybe we'll try a couple things. We'll just grab like kind of like a darker blue and then slightly lighter blue. That's gonna look bad because the difference is too significant. But I'm just gonna grab a couple different things and we'll just put them on there and see how they look. We'll even grab this and maybe something a little bit more green perhaps. All right, we'll just kind of fill these in and see if anything really catches our eye for what we may want. Nah, I don't think the red looks very good. The red is good in very, like select circumstances. That's pretty much the same color. I hardly even did anything there. Go ahead and get rid of both of those. Damn, that green-ish does look good though. Blue looks all right. I can see blue maybe being a thing. What if we tried something more green? So like kind of like a vibrant green, and then I suppose once we're here we can go down a little bit in darkness. Maybe a little more. This is also why my, that's kind of cute. It's like the grass he's frolicking around in. Okay, maybe we'll stick with this for now. Again, I do want to see if there's any kind of modification that I might be able to make to the eyes, just so they are more unique, but I'll probably end up doing that offline just because it's probably going to take some time for me to put together. The mouth as well. But for now, we're going to leave this and we'll work on the wings. I think the most important part at the moment is just kind of getting an idea for what the entire piece is going to look like, and then I can make some detail changes at the end. Alrighty, so going down to shading, we're going to add another layer here as well. Oops. I'll do that. We'll just duplicate the, oh no, we don't want to duplicate. We want just a new layer, which I think is Shift N. Yeah, okay. New layer is Shift N. But we'll use this. We're going to call it wings. We want to put it above the lines. Not that it's going to matter because it's going to be coming out of its back, but we'll just do something like that for now. I'm going to remove all of these because they were randomly selected. I'll keep the current ones that we have, which I believe was, hold on, let me see what this looks like. Let me go back to eyes. Maybe have this for this color. No, it's not enough contrast. Oh wait, we would want this and then this here. Still not enough contrast. All right, so we're gonna keep what we have here with these two colors. This was a nice thought, but we'll get rid of that for now. So that'll be the eyes at the moment. Close this folder. Come down to, oops, I guess I got rid of wing. Oh no, wings are still here. Okay, so for the wings, we want gray and white, I suppose. So we probably want some kind of like a dark gray to really do the shape with. And actually we want wings to be down below the body or the shading, because we want the wings to be behind all of the stuff that you can currently see, except for the tail. Curious. I might actually need to, because we get rid of shading. So we'll need to take this portion of the tail. We'll just grab it. We're going to remove that. And we're going to create a Shift N, a new layer here, and we'll add it back there. So we'll just put this tail, and we're going to do the same thing for what we did as far as the lines are concerned. We'll take Q, we'll make sure that so Q allows you to do this like select marquee where you can kind of do whatever you want, kind of like select around instead of using M, and we'll just paste that there. So I have a quarrel with that. So I'm thinking technically if I were to actually do that, then I would miss out on the fact that I can go back to this if I wanted to. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to duplicate this shading as it is, and we're just going to shading fallback. So that's going to allow us to just go back to the original shading that we have, like the full picture shading, and we're going to just close our eyes on that one. I'm going to do the same for the lines. So we'll duplicate the lines here. We'll just say lines fallback. This is not best practice, by the way. Don't take my advice. Go look at somebody better for educating yourself how to do pixel art. I'm just, again, kind of sharing my process and some of the work that I'm doing here. And we're going to close that as well. So what this is going to allow us to do is once we remove the tail from both of these and put it into this tail piece, if we don't like, if we need to go back or kind of get rid of some of these shade at any point, then what we'll be able to do is just remove the tail, or like, close the eye on the tail, take the visibility away, and then open these back up, and hopefully we'll be okay there. And then obviously we'll have to get rid of the shading and lines, whatever. I'm probably overcomplicating this. But yeah, okay, so now we want to get rid of this portion of the tail just to make sure that we're able to have the, we want to have the wings go behind the general body, like the head and everything, but we want it to be over top of the tail. So we're going to take the tail there. We're going to take the same thing for lines, cut that out, and add it to the tail here. And then we're going to bring the tail down below. That is not what I was trying to do. Okay, please. Come on. Okay, I just want the tail to come down below the wings. There we go. Cool. Yikes. All right, so now if we remove the tail, or once we close, what is holding us up right now? Okay, well, I guess I put everything here. So we're just going to rename this to, we'll rename this to tail, and then, again, probably overcomplicating things here, but whatever. Okay, so now we have the tail. We can remove the entire tail, but also it's below the wings now. So when we do have the wings, it should come over the tail overall. I'm going to find just kind of like a gray. I'll probably return actually to this original yellow that we had, and then I'm just going to come all the way over here to gray. Take this gray, take maybe a slightly lighter gray that we take more over to the yellow hue. It's more of like a white, which is fine. Maybe just a little bit higher as well. All right. So we have 3 different colors here, and what I'm going to try to do is just kind of imagine what these wings might look like. That's actually not a bad line right there. I'm actually kind of happy with that as it is. Unfortunately, I did not close it, so I need to close it so we can fill it, make it contiguous. So that's kind of, that's that. Again, this is very rough, like kind of a rough draft tail or wings concept that I'm really kind of just throwing together at the moment. And what I'm doing at the moment now is removing some of, like just getting rid of the color in some of the areas on the wing here so that it can reflect. And you'll see it as we get more over here to the left, that it can like kind of reflect or is transparent. You'll be able to see the tail behind the wings, which might be a neat feature of the wings themselves. It's probably not going to work just because now it looks like a tennis racket, but that's okay because we can still fill in otherwise. I do kind of like how that turned out though. I'm just kind of making the consideration now. So we'll take the white and fill in some of these up here, perhaps. Do we want to add a stinger and have a stinger be visible, or do we want the main focus point here to be more so on the wings? Yeah, I still don't really like how that's coming out, and we just do like a full dither. I'm gonna just paint it all back in with the original color. Then we're just gonna kind of go back to the drawing board and thinking about how we might be able to shape this so that it has some more of like an actual wing structure to it. So maybe something more like bug-like, where it's something like that. I mean, obviously we'll be tidying that up a lot, but perhaps something along those lines. I think we'll remove those three for now. All right. I think I might actually close the stream down here. It's been about an hour. Just wanted to kind of jump on and go through some original, or some like my original take on putting this bee together. Or, you know, Meli. This is Zep for one of my holders. The guy who holds the Zephyr that Meli is coming out of is somebody that I've known in the space for quite some time. He's a pretty cool guy, so hoping he ends up liking what I put together here. I am going to go through and really try to correct the wings, but I got to open up some reference pictures and tabs and stuff. I'm not quite prepared for that for this stream, but I will for next time. Will be for next time. Anyway, if you jumped on, for the one person who was watching this, thank you very much for checking it out. Anybody who sees this in the future, also thank you for checking out the channel. Be sure to subscribe and like the video and ignore my Steam invites.